everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're going to be checking out some routers over the next couple of weeks, starting with this one from Belkin. This is their AC1750DB. This is a dual-band wireless AC router that also has Gigabit Ethernet on board. This one is really aimed at a general consumer audience. So if you're a techie looking for a lot of ultimate control over what goes on your network and how it operates, this is probably not going to be for you. But if you are, a consumer looking for better speeds out of your network, maybe you want to plug in some network-attached storage devices and want faster wireless for your new devices that support wireless AC, this one might be worth considering. So we'll step through that, but just know this is really not aimed at the techie enthusiast audience. You've got 4 gigabit Ethernet ports on here, which is really good. As you know, if you watch any of my network-attached storage device videos, you definitely want the gigabit for the best speeds on your network. It also has, of course, the WAN port for connecting to your cable modem or DSL modem or whatever you're connecting to the internet with. You have 2 USB 3.0 ports on here. They're relatively crippled in the sense that you can connect a hard drive to it, but you really can't do all that much with it, and I'll show you what that is all about in a minute when we look through its control panel. You could also connect printers to it and have this act as a print server. And that's pretty much it. It's doesn't really feel like all that much. There isn't much inside of it, but it's just a hollow plastic shell. But I would imagine a lot of this is for the antenna. Now, it does have dual band wireless, which will give you better speeds if you have devices that support the new wireless AC standard. So things like the iPad Air 2, maybe the new iPhone, and a bunch of Android devices and other notebook computers, I'm sure, all support this. But a lot of the older ones don't. So before you really jump into this thinking you're going to be getting faster wireless, make sure that your device supports wireless AC. It is relatively new, so a lot of older stuff, even things that are like a year or two old, may not support it. So check accordingly before you spend the money on it. But let's take a look at the control panel now, and we'll see what makes this thing tick. Now I'm going to start my overview of the control panel on the router with a gripe. So you'll notice when I hit my enter key and log in, there isn't any logging in because it's not asking me for a password, and it should be. And that's a big problem that I have with a lot of these consumer-facing devices that really compromise security for convenience. And I think there's ways to enforce security without making things too difficult to use. And in this case, this would have been an easy thing to do. They do make you put in a Wi-Fi password to connect to it wirelessly. There's a big sticker that it comes with the password, and the router even knows what that password is and displays it here. They could have made that the default login for the control panel, but they don't, and that really aggravates me that they don't have those things on there. You can set a password for the control panel here just by clicking here and typing everything in, but it really isn't obvious, and they really should have made this part of the initial workflow, that if you want to use it, set the password up, and then we'll let you do everything else. And it was really, I just don't think that's a good security conscious thing to do. Now, the one thing it's going to prompt you for when you first get here is to add a little more oomph. And again, very consumer friendly language here. They have something called IntelliStream, which if you are a networking savvy person, you will also know as quality of service. And what this basically does is that if you have, let's say, somebody in the house is uploading a big file and you're trying to have a Skype call at the same time, sometimes that upstream gets saturated and you lose your connection. Your call doesn't really work all that great. So what this IntelliStream does, and what quality of service really is giving that voice conversation priority over the upload of the file, and IntelliStream is a way to do that. And what it does is it goes out to speedtest.net, measures your up and down speeds, and then is able to calculate how to best offer that quality of service. And I would say this will probably work, but if you have a bad bandwidth night and your bandwidth is measured lower than it might otherwise be, I think you might have some issues down the road with it. So you can, of course, type in these things manually to set it up, but this will work, but it probably won't be perfect if you're getting going there. So let me just forward myself back into here. So there are some other things to take a look at, though. Again, very consumer friendly here. We've got a website filter, so we can block malicious, adult, and other non-family friendly sites. And I guess they're using Norton to kind of decide what those kinds of things are. So you can do that. You also have some parental internet control, so you can decide which devices can log into the internet and what times they are logging in. So if you really want to play big brother or big parent here, you can schedule what times of day certain devices can log in. It does that based on the device's MAC address, the address that is assigned to its network adapter or its device when it connects. Now, if your kids are really tech savvy, they'll be able to circumvent this by spoofing MAC addresses and all this other stuff. But chances are well, maybe, who knows? Your kids are probably going to figure out a way around it, but it's possible to kind of restrict them so long as you know what MAC address they're spoofing at the time. And there's also a media server on board. There's those two USB ports in the back that you can plug a hard drive into. They've got another third-party service here running in the background as a DLNA server. This will essentially allow you to stream music files, video files, and other multimedia files off of here to your television, and presumably if they're all on the same network, they should be able to see each other and do that. The only issue, though, is that you can't load files onto the device through the router. You have to basically take the hard drive out, plug it into your computer, load the files on, plug it back in, re-index it, and then hopefully your TV or whatever you're connecting with will be able to find those files and play them. So not a real ideal perfect situation. It would have been nice to be able to access the files on the router here and get them going, but it does have that feature on there. I don't think it's all that useful. There are some other things here like checking out which devices are connected, who can access it as a guest, and then optional software which basically points you at some apps that are kind of used to accompany the router configuration and whatnot. Nothing really all that spectacular. It's not even really worth mentioning. There are some advanced settings though, so you can go in and do some basic router settings like port forwarding and some of the things that we've had on routers for years. So it will function like a traditional router will. You can go in there and kind of make some more fine-tuning some of the network settings, but it doesn't have all of the server functions that a lot of the higher-end routers now have. So if you're looking for like a VPN server, or maybe you're running a little web server or something else on it, this won't do that. It is a basic router that has some pretty decent performance actually. And what I did was connect the only wireless AC device I have in the house, which is my iPad Air 2, and you can see it actually does pretty well over wireless. It's getting speeds of about 400 and so megabits per second. As I walked further away from it, those speeds kind of declined a little bit. So halfway across the house, we went down to about 200 or 250 megabits per second running the same test there. So not bad though. I mean, it's really for a pretty basic router. This is pretty good performance, and I think if you're looking for something very simple to set up and gives you a little bit of a performance boost both with the Gigabit Ethernet and the wireless AC, I think this will work quite well. But I think if you are an advanced user, you're probably going to want something a little bit better than what this has to offer. The other thing you need to keep in mind with for any router is really keeping an eye on the firmware and making sure you're always up to date, because these routers do develop security issues from time to time, and keeping them up to date is really critical. So I would suggest making sure you log into that control panel with a password, of course, and every once in a while making sure that all the firmware is up to date and ready to go. So that is the Belkin AC 1750DB, and this is Lon Simon. Thanks for watching.